So we've been stuck at home for roughly a month here, and this is my wife's setup for work. It's a drone box stacked on top of a cake pan, stacked on top of a board game, with her computer that folds up flat. She asked if I could build her a standing desk, and I went through my scrap bin looking through plywood and all that stuff, and I found a piece of 1/2-inch ply and enough long boards that I could kind of jerry-rig something together quickly and easily. Another key part of this build was to do it really quickly because we have a son and dogs and they all need to be watched, and it just needed to not be a time-consuming project. So I got some measurements of her height and went through and got all my tools, and you can see all the scrap that I had here. This is all stuff. It's not high quality stuff, but it will get the job done for what we need, and we really don't need many tools to do this project. The first thing I wanted to do is get the legs all measured out, so I got them measured, cut, and set up. And the basic idea here is going to be a flat top that has legs and then has a couple support members and a large beam coming up the back that supports her laptop. Her laptop's keyboard folds all the way around, and we can use a wireless or a wired keyboard that plugs into it down at a lower level. So the idea here again is to bring up the computer to the level of her eyes so that she can go ahead and do all of her work. It always just feels so good when you nail that first cut perfectly. Look at this thing. After that, I used my scrap 1/2-inch ply and kind of went through and just marked out the exact pieces I need. I didn't really measure anything because it's not necessary. This board is not square either, so it kind of just took some time to go through and get it set up, get it marked out so that I could cut it on the chop saw. After I cut all my pieces, you can kind of see I made a box out of the bottom. Now this is just roughly put together, but then you'll see that I put the legs in here. They're just going to stand on sides and get screwed into the side and the front and hopefully not fall off like that. I simply went through and added some glue to the bottom, put some clamps on there to hold it in, and then countersunk some holes and drove some screws in. Nothing fancy. Again, this was supposed to be quick, dirty, and just to get the job done for what we needed. Now that all the box sides are screwed and glued in, we can put the legs in. You can see I'm just going to add some glue to the inside here and put some nails on each side, and hopefully it'll stay together. And here's the completed raised platform for the keyboard. You can see the legs. I have to put some cross members in there, and then there's going to be a post going up the back that will actually hold the computer and the screen. The legs themselves are already pretty strong, but I wanted to go through and add a cross member across the back to really support the weight of the computer when it's raised up in the air on that main post. So I'm just using a simple spacer here and going through and screwing and gluing these in place so that it's set up and ready for the next step. And this is generally how it's going to go. There's going to be a post that I put out, then I'm going to put a piece of scrap plywood on there. I'll attach a little bar to the bottom of it to hold the computer up, and then a couple of spacers to stop the computer from kicking out and sliding away. That space in there is going to basically fit the computer entirely in it. The next step is figuring out where the center of this thing is. I've taken no measurements so far except for the height of the legs. Everything else has just kind of been cut to size. So here I am just figuring out the center lines for both the bottom cross member and the top, and then I'll put in the main post through the center and kind of line it up with the center to make sure that the support and the computer will be centered on everything. Once I have the center line marked there, I'm going to draw vertical lines on the backs of each of those to kind of line them up so when I clamp it in place, it stays where I want it. Once you have it lined up and centered, all you have to do is pop a couple of pilot holes in there, and then you can screw it into place and it's ready to go. And you do the same thing with the bottom cross member as well. So now we're in the home stretch. We need to attach the thing that's going to hold the computer and the screen. Again, the computer folds up so the keyboard goes behind, and we're just going to have the screen there visible, and it's all part of the same thing. So all I did was clamp it on, and then I'm just going to pop a couple holes into it, making sure I drill through. And I choose to drill in the front here because I didn't really measure the length of screws or the wood or anything like that, and I know the screws I have are just a little bit longer than what the thickness of the wood is. So they're going to poke out of the back, and I didn't want it poking into the computer, obviously. So all I had to do was just kind of drill them through, and if they pop through the back, they pop through the back. It's not really that big of a deal. The idea behind this stand is really to set up so that the computer stands up vertically there, the eyes are level with the top of the screen, and you can easily see everything so you're not kind of hunched over looking at a weird angle, which my wife's been doing for the past month here, so I wanted to make sure we took care of that properly for her. And the very last thing I had to do was glue on these little stoppers because I didn't want the computer just to kick out and go wherever it wanted. It needed to be kind of held back. So I'm just gluing these on and then using some spring clamps to keep them in place. There's no screws or anything like that necessary. Just glued on and they should be fine from there. And here's the completed thing. The glue's still drying, but the vertical support, it did have the screws pop through the back, so I'm glad I didn't turn those around the other way. And that whole assembly is just screwed in. There's no glue, so I can change it if necessary, and especially with the heights. And this is what it looks like now. My wife can easily move her computer up so it's at eye level. She can type at the 90 degrees for her elbows, and it looks great compared to what we had before.